Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Leadnap Gaming. Today we're going to look at the ever-present question, has CIG actually given us a release date for Star Citizen? Now, that probably looks like a clickbaity title, and it's not really meant to be. I actually think we might be seeing them giving us a release date for Star Citizen, and it's sooner than you probably think. Now, I'm going to package that up today with what have they said and done, kind of put that together, set the stage for you. I'm going to give you what I think they're giving us as a release date, and then I'm going to back that up with why I think that. So go ahead, cue the start. Oh, hey, we already did that. Well, we would have played intro music here if we were a different channel. I will announce that we do have our giveaway going right now. If you're subscribed to the channel, comment on any video between, well, really now, and the beginning of the anniversary sale for your chance to win a free LTI token. And who doesn't want one of those going into the big anniversary sale, which actually is going to be a part of what we talk about today. I'm also going to mention none of this is scripted. This is all kind of off the cuff. It started out as a Explore the Verse, which is dialogue. It got bigger than that. It got a lot bigger than that. It got to like 25, 30 minutes. And so I've really been working to kind of pare this down and put it in a format that's short and concise. So bear with me there. So, yeah. What has been going on? Well, so the biggest thing to look at here is in the most recent announcement, right? That they are bug smashing like crazy here. In fact, they've actually told us they've put off some of the things and made changes to some of the things. For example, how new Babbage and Microtech are coming out in order to better facilitate smashing as many bugs as they can to, quote, but not quite a quote, make 3.8 the most playable patch ever. Now, don't get me wrong, I've been a huge advocate for them bug smashing, right? We've had some pretty bad lingering problems in Star Citizen now for quite a while that, let's be honest, are just really starting to get old and are kind of a bar to playability sometimes. So I'm glad they're doing this. In fact, in my Is This an Alpha video, I plugged and promoted the idea of doing this. So awesome. I'm glad they're doing it. But there are some, of course, downsides to that. And we've even seen that to an extent as well, where they've made changes in the entire development process, right? Where it's now broken into the two teams, and like the group working on 3.9 isn't working on 3.8, and the guys that worked on 3.8 aren't working on anything in 3.9, unless of course you count the things that have been moved from 3.8 to 3.9. It's, yeah, kind of weird. And, you know, I've got some stuff later. I was going to talk about, like, the prison system coming out right now and stuff. And maybe that'll make its way into this, but it probably won't. Topic for another day. Some other things we've seen. Well, we've seen a major marketing push, right? Like the Mantis was announced by Newsweek. And that was some favorable press. But there really has been a change in marketing, if you think about it, to really try to attract as much new blood, new attention as possible. And that also means a lot of money spent on some of this marketing effort. So you've got that there. And we've got the free fly event going on now, which hats off to that, because, man, there's nothing more frustrating than seeing like a free fly event in December, right? Where you play the game and then you see all the cool ships and you're like, oh, man, like I would love to get my hands on a Valkyrie. Oh, you're going to have to wait till next November, dude. Yeah, the anniversary sale that just happened, right? So you do see they're doing this major marketing push now, free fly now, all of this effort to get as many people in for this anniversary celebration and sale as best they can for Citizencon, where they're going to announce some pretty big stuff. So you can already begin to see where I'm going with that. But, and that's all big and dandy. And Citizencon, we already kind of know, hey, there's going to be some exploration stuff coming out. The Carrack is supposed to come out. 3.8 is supposed to happen in conjunction with Citizencon. Now, of course, the lingering question there, too, is, does that mean PTU will really begin at that? Because they don't, you know, they probably don't want to unveil the Carrack in PTU before they unveil, you know, take their thunder from Citizencon with it. So there's some interesting questions to be had there, which topic for another day, I suppose. But I, again, want to call all this attention to all of the effort that they're doing to bring new blood in today. So now let's talk about releases. And this is really just kind of important for me and setting the stage to understand my thesis here. So let's look at games 10 years ago, right? And we could actually go even further back, and we are going to go further back because I'm actually going to talk about games I grew up with, which is much, much longer ago than 10 years. Man, I'm feeling old suddenly. So, originally, like video game developers and development, before you released a game, you did this big marketing push, build up hype for the release, like, oh man, Video Game 2 is coming out, that's going to be so cool, and it would release. And then people would see it for the first time, and you'd get, the critic reviews would be in, and everyone would go buy the box at their video game stores that don't really exist anymore because no one buys CD games, and that's how games were released. And honestly, that's really the way we're looking at Star Citizen today in 2019, right? We're sitting here and we're like, all right, they're in the alpha phase now, they're going to do a beta, and then they're going to give us a date where it's going to release, and we're going to go out and we're all going to buy the game, even though we already all own it, and we're going to play it. And it's going to be released. It's going to be awesome. But that's not how games are released anymore, right? I mean, let's think about this. Steam, I think, really probably changed the game with early access. And not to say that CIG was taking the lead from that in any way, but today, half the games in my Steam library are early access games. Dreadnoughts, for those of you following that game, right? That looks awesome. And if you buy the, deluxe edition, you get access to the open alpha right now. You get to play some of the missions, do some of the gameplay effects, all while waiting for it to come out. How's that any different from Star Citizen, though? Right? Oh, well, they don't have a release date yet. But the point being is today, a lot of video games that come out, people have already been playing before they were released. Now, obviously, there's some titles like, Modern Warfare just came out again. It's a little confusing because it's like, well, but is that the same one? Is it a rehash? What have you? But, so, where am I going with that? Well, take how games used to be developed, right? You had Command & Conquer, and then you had Command & Conquer Red Alert. Those aren't the same game. Right? Now, they used the same engine, they used the same graphics, all of that stuff, but in one of them, Command & Conquer, it was the GDI and the nod, and then they kind of took the same notion and then repackaged it with Allies and Soviets. But they were two distinctly different games. Now, back up a decade and a half and look at World of Warcraft, right? You had Vanilla, and then you had Lich King, Cataclysm, all those. I think Cataclysm was the last one I played in. It gives you an idea how long it's been since I played that game. But you get my point, right? World of Warcraft was released, right? We had the Vanilla Edition. World of Warcraft today, and I know they just re-released the classic one, but if you went and played World of Warcraft and not the classic one, right? Orgrimmar looks different today than it did when the game came out. Right? The graphics have changed. Everything about that game has actually changed. The original classic version, you had all of these skill points that had to go to these different weapons, all these different skills, right? And then they dumbed that down, pared that down, and what have you. And the kind of trend today has really become, you release the game, and then you release these kind of updates that people even potentially pay for. So you could have Star Citizen and then Star Citizen Expanse, right? The follow-up game to it that we then spend another $45 for and get access to a whole new piece of the verse. What have you. And hopefully CIG doesn't hear me say that and think that's a great idea, because it's not. Not. Terrible idea. Bad. So what I'm getting at is that today there's this trend for released but not really done, right? And when we look at games like World of Warcraft, well, it had an official release date. It's a released game. I'm going to compare it to the other game I spent a lot of time in, DCS, right? DCS actually is a released game. It released in 2008. And we're in DCS 2.5 now. And DCS 2.5 has a whole lot of features that the original DCS didn't have, better graphics engine, all these different changes, right? And the game is released. Nobody is sitting there saying, oh, well, DCS is total vaporware because, they haven't even released the game yet. But the thing is, anyone who plays DCS knows 2/3 of the aircraft in that game, which are called modules, are in early access. They're not done yet. In fact, the F-16, you can only do a couple of different things, and that's it. And I'm a big F-16 guy. The Viggen, the other thing I spent a lot of time in, which you probably noticed from the quick start that came out last week, is it's been in development for 2 years, right? With features that didn't work, elements that weren't in yet. Like none of my MFD pages in the F-16 exist. It all just says placeholder. Okay, but no one sits there and says, oh, well, DCS hasn't been released yet. But everyone says that about Star Citizen. Because Star Citizen is still trapped in this notion of we're going to have an official release date and the game will be done on that date. And I think there is a reality to be had here. Is that day ever going to come? And you look at crap like prisons, right? And you say, prisons were never part of the day one discussion of Star Citizen. And yeah, it's been a topic of discussion off and on for a while. But really the whole we're getting prisons thing is a pretty, couple months old thing. And 3.9, it's happening. We got a shanking simulator, and you're probably going to be able to sell soups to pay rent to your celly, what have you. I don't want to get into all of that topic for a different day. But my point is, right, there's all these different elements going into the game. So my hypothesis for you as this drones on is 3.8 the release. And now follow along with me here, okay? Because first off, they've changed the entire dev cycle, right? We're no longer trying to plug things into the game until we have a stable system built around it and then roll it out. They're now trying to make the game as playable as possible, to the point that, similar to DCS, you can get in and play the game. It can be released and just new features are always going to continue to be added. So, to say, oh, we want to make 3.8 the most playable patch ever, right? They're looking at it as a patch, maybe not necessarily an alpha patch. And so we could see a nomenclatural change coming that would actually really reflect this. But I think softly, CAG is trying to change the image. They're trying to change the notion here. They're trying to get away from the 10 years old notion of we're going to have a release date, that's when the game is officially released, and instead put together this system, right, that we have now that has pretty much everything you need to play, and that just other quality of life improvements, new features, new systems, all that stuff is just gravy that comes as updates down the road. And you could get into the paid for DLC model even if you really wanted to at that. And again, if CIG's listening, bad idea. Someone roll up a newspaper here. So, like I said, that's my hypothesis. And I don't want to draw this out too long. But, I do want to point out, if they get the justice system implemented, right, and with that comes bounty hunting, right, we've got a working flight model. 3.8, we're going to have exploration and multiple system jumping capability potentially, with Microtech not being in the Stanton system per lore. We have cargo running. Is the game complete enough to be considered a release game? I mean, how many of us play the game regularly with FPS combat, all of these different things? At what point could we accept that Star Citizen is good enough to be released and everything else is just going to be additional content down the road, right? And of course that opens up the questions. Does this mean that other game mechanics for the economy are not essential? Do we need salvage to make the economy work? Because right now you can go mine the materials, which introduce them into the system, right? And sell those materials, which gives us cargo running and the impetus for economic trade. And then we've got the combat systems. Does this even mean that an economy is essential, right? I would argue it does. Diablo. But there's ample argument to be made that we're going into 3.8 and we've had economy enough to make the game work, right? So like I said, it's not necessarily that CIG has come out and announced that on November 23rd, 2019, Star Citizen will be a released game. But if they are successful in changing the dialogue about what does release actually mean, and if they can knock the title alpha off of things and instead make it where as content comes out, it's fully flushed and playable when it arrives, could it count as a release? And could the game then be considered a release and give them the ability to finally duck the vaporware argument? Anyways, let me know down in the comments below. What are your thoughts to those questions I just posed? Do you think I'm right about that? Wrong about that? As always, remember that those comments count towards our giveaway if you're subscribed. So if you're not, go ahead and mash that subscribe button. As always, I'll catch you all next time.